everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to revisit my very first VR that I did on my channel 1 year ago. That was the Only 10 Decks tag that was started by Katie Flowers. I thought it would just be interesting to sort of look back at what I would have chosen back then and to see how that has sort of progressed over time. And it actually changed a lot more than I thought it would, which is interesting to me. So I hope it's interesting to you guys too. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. I just put the decks in alphabetical order, so there's no other sort of organization besides that. But this is tarot and oracle, any forms of divination. If I could only keep 10, what would I choose? So first up is an oracle, and that is the Enchanted Art Oracle by Pettibone. This can be found on Etsy. It was my first oracle, and it was gifted to me by a friend. But the reason I would keep this is because it is very, very light. It is very fluffy, for lack of a better word. All of the messages are positive, and all of the images are very, this sort of like vintagey art style. And I think it's okay to have an all light deck, because later on I'm going to be showing an all sort of shadowy deck. Normally I do like to have a combination of both in my decks, especially my oracle, but in this case I think it is really good to sort of have that one deck that you just go to when you just need a positive message. You don't want to hear about what you did wrong. You don't want to hear about what you need to work on. You just want to know that everything's going to be fine. And this is that deck for me. It reminds me of my grandmother, so that holds a very special place in my heart. But yeah, it is just nice and kind and uplifting. And I think that, you know, that's a good deck to have. If I could only have 10, I would definitely want one that is always kind. So that is the Enchanted Art Oracle by Pettibone. Next up is a tarot deck. This deck is going to be no surprise to anybody. It is my Ethereal Visions. This was one of my first 2 tarot decks. It was the deck that got me interested in tarot almost 5 years ago now. This is a RWS clone in the Art Nouveau style. It is more pastel. But I just personally have such a connection to this deck because I was drawn to it when I was first questioning my spiritual path. And it is actually the deck that helped me discover my deity. And every single time I read with it, it is crystal clear for me. It is that combo of light and dark for me. So it gives me a hug when I need it. It tells me what I need to work on when I need to hear that. And it also is a pretty good predictor deck for me. Like it has helped me predict anxiety attacks. It has helped me predict like car troubles or trouble on the road where I almost got like into a car accident. Little things like that no deck really has, or no other deck has really done for me, I should say. So this one is very, very special. It is never going anywhere. I also just love the gold foiling. Like, it's just a fun little detail, and who can't use more sparkle in their lives, you know? yeah, this is a great reader. I use it for myself all the time. I've used it for others. It has never shown me that it's only good for one type of reading. It's a really good, well-rounded deck for me. So that is Ethereal Visions. This is the first, I'm assuming first edition. He has another edition out that is like the Luna edition, which is like the silver gilding and slightly different artwork. But this is the one that I have and will always have. Created by Matt Hughes, published by US Games. Okie doke. Next up is another tarot. Is that really? Okay, we're taking a big jump in the alphabet here. This is my Northern Animal Tarot. And this is the second edition. I keep mine in a little crochet bag. I keep the oracle cards separated by the little guidebook. I do have the moon phase cards out on my altar all the time, and I cycle through the moon phase cards in alignment with the current moon phase. But this is the deck. Here are the backs. This deck is one that I originally got to read for my partner, but has ended up being a great reading. It is great for my partner if I ever do readings for them, but it is also a really comforting and soothing deck that has helped me do some inner child work. So I was not expecting to use this deck for myself, but it has shown that it is good for that as well. The anthropomorphic animals are something that I saw and read a lot in books and movies and TV shows and all that good stuff. So it really, with that familiar artwork, it allows for the messages to just come through in a more comforting way. So it has been great for that. It is one that I really enjoy the changes that the creator has made between the first edition and the second. And I believe they do have the third edition. If it's not already out, it's coming very soon. I don't know if I'll get the third edition, honestly. I don't know if there are quite as much or as many changes that would warrant me to get the third edition, but if it were slightly smaller cards and on linen cardstock, I would definitely probably end up getting the third edition as well. But yeah, it's just a very comforting deck, but it's not all like fluffy and woo-woo. It is still very pointed, and it gives me the messages that I need to hear, just in a more comforting way that makes it more easily digestible for me at times where I don't really want to get my feelings hurt, if that makes sense. But it has definitely called me out. It's put me in my place. It's just a very comforting deck. So yeah, so that is the Northern Animal Tarot. And as of now, it's my only animal tarot deck. I'm not sure if that will be the case forever, but as of right now, it is. All right, next up is playing cards. I have another playing card deck that is still very new to me, so that one is still charging on my altar. But I've used this deck for divination as well. This is just your regular bicycle. You can get them almost anywhere. Oh, it looks like I put both the jokers back in because I took it on a vacation. So in case we needed to like actually play a game with that, that's fine. I'll keep both of them in. Actually, I'll set them aside. But yeah, I mean, it's playing cards. I feel like everyone has seen these. The reason I would keep this if I could only have 10 forms of divination is that it's very discreet. So if I, was in a place where I didn't want to be very obvious that I'm reading tarot, this is the deck I would use. It's also a newer, somewhat newer system for me, but it's very grounded, very mundane. It's not a lot about spiritual growth for me. It's more about like, how's my day at work gonna go? Boom, boom, boom. There's what you need to know for the day. So it works really well if I just want a really clear answer. Yeah, still new to it, so that's also kind of why I wanted to include it, is because I enjoy the part of always being a student. So I think always having a form of divination to study and learn more about is really good. So this is, again, just regular old playing cards, but I would definitely have at least one. I don't think I would bring, all the forms of playing cards that I have, but I would definitely take one with me. Okie doke. Next we have another oracle. I think this time I included more oracle than I did in the last video, which is an interesting change because I don't actually use oracle that much, but with my choices I have a very wide variety of like light to shadowy, I guess. So the next one is my shadowy oracle deck. That is the Reclaim Oracle. I don't think I had this deck at the time that I filmed the last video. But this deck has been really, really great for helping me get to the root of negative emotions. It is definitely not going to sugarcoat anything. It's going to tell you exactly what you need to hear. At least in my case, it does. Again, this probably may not be the case for everybody, and that's fine. But for me, this deck calls me out. It tells me exactly what I am feeling. So I tend to use this when I'm not really sure how I'm feeling. I know I'm just feeling a lot, or I'm feeling anxious and I don't know why I'm anxious, and things like that. And it really helps me give a name to what I'm feeling, and that alone is invaluable, because it can be very, very frustrating and defeating when you feel so strongly and you can't explain why. So having a tool to help me give a name to what I'm feeling is really, really great. Yeah, it's just a really good, I often use this, I've used this with my Thoth, I've used this with my Northern Animal Tarot, which is kind of the whole spectrum of like my light and shadowy tarot decks as well. So it does, even though it's a more shadowy oracle, it can be used with any of the decks that I do have, just because it just helps me get to the root of emotions, whether they be positive, negative, confusing. It's just a very helpful tool. It's also a chunky deck, so it's not, like, she thick. Which is great because, I never really thought that I would have a need for so many different emotions. Like I thought, I'm really good at defining my emotions. Well, this deck has humbled me. Sometimes it's tricky, and that's okay. And it's okay to need help putting your emotions into words. So this deck does that for me. This is the Reclaim Oracle by Marion Costentin. She is Little Darkness on Instagram and her website. Wow, we're already halfway through. Okay. Next up, another oracle. I told you there would be a lot more oracle this time. So this is the Roots and Wings Mini by Ryalls. And whereas the Enchanted art is my light oracle, Reclaim is my shadow, this one is a combo of both. And that's why I love it. I love using this oracle for my year ahead readings. Also because it is small, so I use this with my mini Smith Waite, and the cards are just the great size to put, 12 of each on the table and be able to read them. But this, I don't really use it a lot other than my year ahead, so really only once a year right now. But if I were to recommend, excuse me, if I were to recommend an oracle to someone who was looking for something that had both light and dark components and even had some tarot cards in there, this is what I would recommend. Because, we have the light, we have the shadow, and it's just a very good, well-rounded oracle. And the little pamphlet that has all the meanings is really, really great. This is always a deck that I do read the guidebook, just because the messages in there are so, so great and helpful. And this deck, with the color palette, it goes really well with a lot of decks if you are one that likes to match your oracle to your tarot in an aesthetic way. I tend to go based off of feeling, but I can't say that there's any tarot deck that this doesn't look good next to. It's got animals, it's got people, but the people in the deck, there's no faces, there's no gender or things like that. So it is very nature based, but it's not without, like, it shows, how do I want to word this? It just has people and animals in the same space, cohabitating and in harmony. And that's also something that I'm just sort of now processing and putting into words. And it's sort of showing how our relationship with nature should be. Not what it is, but how it should be. So I really like that as well. Show a couple more cards. So that is the Roots and Wings mini. Oh, this, if you're interested in this deck, the mini is like regular cardstock, whereas the larger version is a rose petal finish. I believe that's still the case for the two sizes. So if you really, really like rose petal, I would recommend the larger deck. That's actually the one I originally had, but had some difficulty just, texturally. It's not for everybody. So I actually traded this with my friend Jess over at Jess Reads Cards. So she had the mini, I had the large. We were like, I want the other one, so we swapped. So hi Jess, thanks again. But that is the Roots and Wings Oracle. So yeah, so 3 oracles, which is different from last year. Okay, next up, I'm counting these as 2 different decks. And let me tell you why. This is my Smith Waite in a tin, and this is my large Smith Waite. The reason I'm counting them as 2 separate decks is because I have modified some cards in this one. So if you get the tin version, it comes with 2 extra art cards, and I have transformed those into the Lovers and the Hierophant. So you do not get these extra art cards with the larger version. So that's kind of my way of, you can call it cheating, I don't care. I really don't have a big tarot library right now, so I was like, I'm going to count these as 2 separate ones. But I love my little tin one. This is the one, again, that I use for year ahead spreads. It's one that I love to just throw in my bag if I feel like I'm going to read and I feel comfortable enough to read tarot and not playing cards, which honestly is not much, but sometimes I'll do readings, like I've done them in my car before, I've done them at work, but back when I kind of had my own office or my own space. Right now I'm in more of a shared office, so I don't really read at work. But I really just love the size of these. It's very easy to shuffle. It's Smith Waite. We've all seen Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork. I just love the coloring. It's not too harsh. It's just the right amount of vintage to where it's not washed out. I mean, what else can I say? Everyone's seen it. It's fabulous. I'll never be without it. And I like that I have sort of made this one my own with the change in those two cards, especially for the Hierophant. With the Lovers, I kind of get more of like a Marseille Lovers, which isn't, you know, good or bad, just a matter of fact. And then with the Hierophant, it's a lot more of this ancestral wisdom that is sort of getting passed down through generations and less religious, which I like. I can't claim this idea. I did see it from someone else on, it may have been Boho Tarot's Facebook page. It was one of those tarot Facebook groups that they did it, and I loved the idea, so I did it as well. Yeah. And then I'm just going to very, very quickly, I mean, again, it's the same artwork. Nothing else is different about it. This physical copy is newer to me than the tin. So this one is one that I like to use for everyday readings, or I guess morning readings. And I'm mostly just trying to get it to the spot where it's nice and worn in and soft. So that's kind of why I keep this one out. I keep this one on my altar more, and I keep this one in my bag more often. So different purposes, different places. I'm counting them as two different decks. Okay, let me put this back. There we go. Nice and tucked in. Alrighty, next deck, if I could only keep 10, would be my Tarot de Carlotydes. I believe I'm saying that right. I don't know if the creator's name is on here. It was like Carlota something. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I will find their name and put it down in the description. But this deck is so fun. You ever just need like a really fun tarot deck? This one is whimsical. It is fun. It is funny. And it is one of my go-tos if I'm reading for others. Earlier this year, I was in a small group where we would do moon spreads based on whatever moon it was, and we would also do like a group spell, but then we would also do readings for other members in the group that were randomly assigned. And this is the one that I used for all of those readings. I wasn't in that group very long. It was like 2 or 3 months. But for those couple of readings that I did for others, I used this deck, and it was really fantastic reading for others. So that is what I've been using it for more. But I do like to use it for myself if I just need some fun. Because this deck is sassy, it is witty, it has references to pop culture, to fantasy, to artwork, to book characters. There's a lot here, but it's not too much. It's not overwhelming. It's just fun. And I really like it. Trying to think of what else to say about it. It does give me very, very literal meanings as far as like the directionality of where characters are looking and things like that. This is one of my favorite hermits. I love his little floral coat. Yeah, like there's references to real people, there's book characters. I'm wondering, and I mean, there's also some very heavy cards. You know, it's not all light and rainbows and butterflies. It will call you out if it needs to. Trying to see if I can find the card that drew me to end up to ultimately get this deck. It was the Four of Swords. Oh, here it is, way in the back. So it's the Princess and the Pea. And I love it because you can see that she is, maybe you can see that, hopefully. She's holding the pea. So she found the reason for her troubles and then changed what she needed to change, and now she can rest. So it's like that action before the pause. Also love this Hierophant, drinking some tea with some bunnies. Like, it's just fun. And if I were to only have 10 decks, I want them to be fun. I want them to bring a smile to my face, because life's too short to be so serious all the time. We need the sparkle, we need the fun, we need the laughter. And this one brings me joy. Okay. Last deck. Drum roll, please. Just kidding. It's the Thoth. As I was just saying how I need a bunch of laughter and sparkle and fun in my decks, then I've got this one. Not to say that it's not fun, but this deck is rich. It is full of so many layers. It's like, you know, at the grocery store, those super duper rich, like triple layer, like chocolate, double chocolate, triple chocolate cakes that you see like in the bakery section. That is what the Thoth reminds me of. I can't have too much of it because then I get a stomach ache. And I can go as surface level or as deep as I want to with this. Like, I can just say like, okay, 5 of Cups, da da da, or I can look at the colors, I can look at the astrology. Personally, I'm not super into the Kabbalah Tree of Life associations with this deck. That's just not something I'm interested in studying at this time. I mean, I might eventually, but there's just so much already present in this deck that I already have enough. But this deck is very good at telling me what is hidden. So I do pair it with the Reclaim a lot, but it's not one that I really read intuitively. It's one that I enjoy and prefer to read books alongside it with. I don't know if that was grammatically correct. But my favorite book to use with the Thoth Tarot is Mirror of the Soul. I've already like majors, quartz, minors, and then for the quartz and minors, I've sort of done the color thing. But it's one that, I mean, you can see I've highlighted throughout. It's a book that really helps me digest what I'm seeing. And I'm honestly at the point where I really think I want to get a dedicated journal or notebook just to study the Thoth and sort of work through my own personal associations and sort of have my own guidebook. I think I will always be a student to the Thoth. This is very much a wise teacher deck. It's not one I can just throw down and be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. It's one that I need to take my time with. So if I could only have 10 decks, I definitely would want one that makes me slow down. It makes me pause and think about what I'm seeing, think about the associations and what to take away from that. So I really like using this at nighttime as like a reflection on my day, because again, I do go to at least Mirror of the Soul. There are a couple other books that I like to use with it as well, but it's a really nice evening, like winding down routine that is a form of study that doesn't feel too much, if that makes sense. Over the next, year or however amount of time, I do want to continue to study and, like I said, kind of make my own guidebook of sorts, but I'm in no rush. I think, like I said, I will always be studying this deck, so I'm not in a rush to memorize meanings because, again, it's so rich. There's a lot here, so I'm going to take my time with it and enjoy it just like a piece of chocolate cake. So I definitely would keep the Thoth if I could only have 10. Where'd my bag go? Here it is. So if you read with the Thoth, are there any books that you enjoy using? I would like to know. Let me know down in the comments. So that is all of the 10 decks that, if I could only keep 10, those are the ones I would keep. If you have done a VR to this tag, let me know down below. I would love to check it out. Even if you are revisiting, like myself, if you've done the tag before, let me know. Because I really think it's interesting how my choices have changed over the past year. So let me know what you think down below. And before you guys go, please remember, you matter, you are loved, and you can make a difference. Bye, everyone.